I'm Heather, and this is the Living with Addiction podcast, where I show you how you have more power than you realize when it comes to helping yourself and your child that's struggling with addiction. Hello, how's everybody doing today? So, do you ever see promises to help you clear subconscious blocks and wonder what in the world that actually means? Today, I'm going to explain it to you in a way that actually makes sense. Because I used to always wonder about this mystical force of subconscious blocks and how I could ever get rid of them if I couldn't even understand what they were. And then I would feel panicked that I would subconsciously block myself for the rest of my life because I'd never figure it out because I couldn't even understand what a subconscious block was. So, in simple, easy to understand terms, subconscious blocks are limiting beliefs. And limiting beliefs are beliefs that are full of self doubt. Beliefs about ourselves and our circumstances in life are just thoughts that we think over and over again. That's how a belief is created. We think a thought over and over again until it becomes a subconscious thought pattern. So beliefs just come from thoughts, and thoughts are just sentences in our brains. Those sentences in our brain aren't even true a lot of the time. But if we aren't taught to question them, then we go through life believing that they are true. And most of our thoughts or the sentences in our brains are just autopilot subconscious thoughts. That means that in order to conserve energy, we don't use our prefrontal cortex, the thinking and reasoning part of our brain, unless we intentionally engage it because it uses a lot of energy. So, in order to conserve energy, we keep recycling those subconscious autopilot thoughts. And it's meant to be helpful for us. But if we don't understand how this works or how to make it work for us, then it works against us as far as creating what we want in our lives. So think about starting a new job and just how exhausting that is. And we tend to blame it on the stress and the change in our schedule. But a large part of it is how much energy it takes using your prefrontal cortex all day to learn something new. And once you know and understand all the tasks of the job, then your brain puts the tasks on autopilot and it doesn't take much energy to carry them out any longer. That's why you don't always stay in that state of it being so exhausting. And it's the same thing. Think about when you're driving home from work and suddenly you realize you're home, but you aren't aware of how you got there. You're not having to think of every single direction. It all just happened on autopilot. And that's how a lot of our thoughts are. That's how the thoughts that really create all of the results in our life are happening on autopilot. They're autopilot and subconscious to conserve energy so we aren't walking around exhausted all of the time the way we are when we start a new job. So, if you've never taken the time to question the sentences in your brain and question the beliefs that those sentences have created, then you're limiting yourself in ways you can't see because you aren't looking, you aren't realizing what's happening. I never did until I understood how this worked. You just see the way you look at everything as normal because that's just what you've always done. You don't question it. When you start questioning those thoughts and beliefs, you start to realize how many of them were just things you were exposed to as a child. A lot of our beliefs are formed when we're really young. And so we form the beliefs of the things that we're exposed to, like what our relatives believe, our teachers, or what you hear in church or what you see on TV every day. That's how a lot of our subconscious beliefs are formed just from the environment that we're in. And once I learned to question my thoughts, I started seeing that I had a lot of beliefs that really didn't make sense to me. And this whole new world opened up for me, a world where every time I thought I couldn't do something, I started to question it. Where before, if I thought I couldn't do something, most of the time I believed it. I started thinking like, can I be a life coach and start my own business? I would have been scared to death to do that before, but when I really questioned it, I realized that, it was just the fear of losing that guaranteed salary paycheck, that I had all of this false sense of security in that. But when I questioned all that and created new beliefs, I was able to start my own business and have to question the beliefs that came up the whole way to keep moving forward. And then I also started questioning my judgments. And this one example sticks in my mind. So you may have heard me talk about it before. And it's kind of a silly thing, but it was really eye opening about how much my beliefs and judgments were holding me back. And it's probably something you can easily relate to on some level. But I used to judge eyelash extensions. I thought that they were like a waste of time and a waste of money and just fake. I was judging them and having all of these thoughts and beliefs about them. And I also had some kind of small judgments about women who got them, that they were kind of selfish to be using that time and money for themselves instead of their families, which it went along with my belief system before, right? Of like never doing anything for myself. But then when my hairdresser got lash extensions, I noticed how good they looked on her. Like, I could see a big difference. I'd seen her without them and with them, and then I started thinking about, well, maybe they would look that way on me. And I thought about how convenient they would be because I would never have to use mascara again. And I found myself wanting them, but also not wanting to be one of those selfish women that I'd been judging. And then I thought, so why is it okay for me to color my hair? Like, I'm not a natural blonde. My hair is actually very dark. So is that fake? And then I thought, like, why is it okay for me to get my nails done, but not my lashes? I get pink and white dip on my nails, every couple of weeks and have for years. So why isn't that fake or selfish? Or why isn't getting my hair done fake or selfish? Why aren't earrings fake or selfish? Like, where does fake and selfish stop and start? Like, really questioning it. Asking myself, why am I judging what other women do, what other women do with their lashes? And I would have never given myself the experience of trying the lash extensions if I didn't question my beliefs. And I loved my lashes. I'm so glad that I questioned my beliefs and got them. And sadly, the only reason I don't have them anymore is because I developed a really bad allergy to them after a year. And it's funny, my eyes swelled up really bad. And I was still trying to figure out how I could keep the lashes, but it got so bad I just had to get them removed. And that's like a lighthearted example, but it led me to questioning my judgments of others and becoming less judgmental overall, and therefore more focused on myself and what I can change within myself instead of trying to control or change others. And those subconscious blocks, those thoughts that I was thinking, would have kept me from giving myself something that I wanted, something that made me happy. and you think about all of the things that you want, but you talk yourself out of. And those are just small ways that subconscious blocks and limiting beliefs keep us from giving ourselves things that we want. So think about things that you want and question why you aren't giving those things to yourself. What is so wrong with it? What are you thinking about it? And then, even if you still decide not to do it, at least you're deciding from a clean space of really believing the reasons that you decided not to do it instead of just defaulting to that because that's always what you've defaulted to in your life. And another big thing that I question my beliefs about was, well, not another big thing. The first thing was kind of small, but a big thing that I question my beliefs about was addiction. My beliefs about addiction were incredibly painful. I believed because I had gone to hundreds of Al Anon and open AA meetings, and I'm not kidding when I say hundreds. I went to at least 3 meetings a week for like 5 years. And because I was raising my daughter, and I'm air quoting here, the right way, she wouldn't have to face addiction like her father. And I sometimes wonder where I even got that belief because I certainly didn't learn that in AA or Al-Anon meetings. I think it was just something that maybe I had to believe that it was possible. So I wasn't constantly worried about her struggling with addiction like her father did. But that belief was a self sabotaging, limiting subconscious block. It was a block to my happiness, my relationship with my daughter, and my ability to find a way to approach her addiction that actually worked. It caused my daughter and I tremendous pain and suffering. And I see that as the epitome of a subconscious block. What I wanted was connection. I mean, that's all that we all want. But what I was creating was alienation. I couldn't understand why, no matter what I did, I could not create connection with my daughter. And I desperately wanted that connection. But it was because I had so many limiting beliefs about addiction and myself as a mother because of her addiction that I kept pushing her away. Since I believed I could be a good enough mother to outparent addiction, and my daughter was addicted, then the only option I had was to believe that I was a bad mom. There was no way I could be a good mom and also have a daughter that was struggling with addiction. So that one belief kept me backed in a corner. I was resisting and fighting the reality of her addiction by trying to control her so that I could be a good mom. And that belief has so many layers of limitations because it also made her addiction about me. And it added even more pressure to an already intense situation. So, can you see all of the limitations and blocks here? I want you to ask yourself and really take time to reflect on it and even write about it if you have similar thoughts limiting you and alienating you from what you want with your child. If you find yourself constantly saying to yourself, like, how did this happen? This isn't what I was trying to do. It's because you have subconscious limiting beliefs that are getting in the way of what you're trying to do. Just like my subconscious limiting belief got in the way of my desire to create connection with my daughter. When I'm coaching somebody, I like to call these limiting beliefs roadblocks because that word creates an instant image for what a roadblock looks like instead of leading to them trying to figure out what the heck a limiting belief is. And when I hear the word roadblock, I just always picture one of those cement barriers that needs a crane or something, big to move it, or one of those signs with the flashing lights on them. So, if the term limiting belief, self-sabotaging, or subconscious blocks, if those terms baffle you, then just think of the word roadblock instead. And my clients and I work together to weed out the roadblocks and create bridges to what they want by questioning their beliefs. That's why I have a module in my Peace of Mind program that walks you through exercises to create new beliefs while you're working with me, because sometimes it's hard to change your thinking on your own. But taking the time to do belief exercises helps you rewire your brain to question your subconscious autopilot thoughts and beliefs so you can create ones that serve you. And the reason that this is also important is because we work in a think, feel, act cycle. That's how your brain works. And I talk about that a lot more in episode 16, the self-coaching model episode. So I would listen to that one after this episode if you haven't listened to it already. But the think, feel, act cycle is, I'll briefly explain it here. You have a thought. The thought releases the chemical that you feel in your body as a sensation of a feeling. Then you take action based on the feeling. The actions you take are what creates all the results in your life. And as humans, we're feeling driven. So we move towards what we want to feel and away from how we don't want to feel. And when you create intentional thoughts and beliefs that serve you, then you have more of the feelings that you want to feel. You take actions that serve you and you create what you want in your life. When you act from unintentional subconscious thoughts, you have more of the feelings you don't want. You take the same actions you've always taken, the ones that don't work for you, and you create results you don't like. So, if your brain is on autopilot right now and you aren't listening to me anymore, I want you to rewind and listen to that, because what I just told you is really the key to everything you want in life. It's how your brain works. And my clients who use this and practice this have created life-changing results by learning to think this way and question their thoughts and beliefs and be intentional. So I just want to repeat that because it's so critical for you to hear this if you want to make changes in your life. Even if you've worked with me and you know this, it's a great refresher, and you might hear something in a way you've never heard it before and learn it at a deeper level. So, the reason everything I'm talking about today is so important is because we work in a think, feel, act cycle. That's how your brain works. You have a thought, the thought releases the chemical that you feel in your body is the sensation of a feeling. Then you take action based on the feeling. And those actions create all of the results in your life. Humans are feeling driven. Feelings are our fuel for action, inaction, or reaction. We move towards what we want to feel and away from how we don't want to feel. So when you create intentional thoughts and beliefs that serve you, then you get to have more of the feelings you want to feel. You get to take actions that serve you, and you create what you want in your life. When you act from unintentional thoughts, you have more of the feelings you don't want. You take the same actions you've always taken that don't work for you, and you create results that you don't like. That's why I kept pushing my daughter away instead of creating connection until I took the time to change my beliefs about addiction. The other part of this is that those autopilot thoughts get recycled across relationships and circumstances. So, my idea for this podcast came up because of something I saw myself doing recently. I found myself recycling the thought, "It's not working," across several areas of my life. And not only was I thinking it's not the problem that we think it's that I was not questioning it and I was acting based on how that thought made me feel. So our brains are going to suggest a lot of things. It's not them suggesting it that's the problem. It's that we don't question it and we act on it. And since I was off of work the majority of June and July and part of August, I wasn't posting on social media very often. When I started posting again, nobody was seeing my post because that's just how the social media algorithm works. I thought, okay, I'll just be consistent and eventually Facebook and Instagram will start showing my posts to my followers and hashtags again. And after 2 weeks, nothing had changed. Nobody's seeing my posts. So, which by the way, if you follow me and you haven't seen my posts on Facebook or Instagram, both of those are at Heather Ross Coaching. If you go interact with the page, you'll start seeing my posts again. That's just how Facebook and Instagram works. If you don't like them or open them and interacting with them, then Facebook and Instagram, they just stop showing that stuff to you. So after 2 weeks of this, I got frustrated. I started thinking, "It's not working," because nobody was seeing my posts and there were hardly any likes or comments or interactions. At the same time, I was also focused on losing more weight before the end of the year. And since I've been on IV and oral antibiotics for the last 2 months, maybe a little bit longer, my gut health definitely was going to take some time to balance out. And if you don't have a good gut health, it's hard to lose weight. So I knew it would take some time to bring everything into balance again. But after 2 weeks, I started getting frustrated because even though I was doing all the right things, my body wasn't responded. I started thinking again in this area, it's not working. So I was having the same thought about my business and about losing weight. And that thought made me want to give up in both areas and think, okay, nobody's ever going to see my posts again, very dramatic, and I'm never going to lose any weight. It was just this all or nothing thinking. My thoughts had me wanting to quit posting on social media and quit trying to lose weight. And so, of course, that led to a few extra snacks here and there because what's it matter? It's not working anyway. So I was taking action from that thought. I only had one measurement for my health, which was the number on the scale. And I only had two measurements for social media, which was engagement and views. Neither of those measurements told the full picture, though. I accidentally noticed that my podcast listeners had doubled 2 weeks in a row. So the people that were seeing my posts were listening to the podcast, even though they weren't engaging with my posts. I started thinking about how our brains filter out most things that don't agree with our thoughts. We always want to prove our thoughts true, which is part of this subconscious limiting belief issue. So we're always trying to look for evidence that we're right. And of course, if that's what we're looking for, that's what we find. Then I started thinking about how most people that follow me don't want anyone to know they're dealing with a child's addiction, so they don't engage with my posts that much anyway. They usually reach out to me by message. So, of course, after I think about that, ironically, I get a few messages over the next few days. And then I started thinking about what else I was missing because my measurement of success was so narrow. I thought, I'm walking 15 miles a day. I mean, a week, not a day. I'm walking 15 miles a week or more when I could barely even walk before my last surgery because I had that infection. Just anything gave me heart palpitations and exhausted me. So I was just resting most of the time, trying to give my body all the energy it could to fight the infection. And I was doing all the things that I needed to be doing to balance my gut health, but it was just going to take time. Then I thought about how much that one thought of it's not working was draining my energy and subconsciously blocking me from seeing my progress. If I had believed that thought, I would have continued to eat things that undermined my weight loss, and I would have eventually stopped posting on social media. Then I thought about all of the parents who have one measurement of their success when it comes to dealing with their child's addiction, because I only had one measurement when it came to dealing with my daughter's addiction for a long time too. My measurement was if my daughter was sober or not. If my daughter wasn't sober, then I wasn't successful. So, of course, I always felt like a failure. And then that played into everything else that I did. I was always taking action based on that and creating that alienation that I talked about earlier. Very similar results being created from my subconscious block about my beliefs about addiction, very similar results being created when I only had one measurement for success in how I was responding to my daughter's addiction. If she wasn't sober, then I wasn't successful, so I was just a failure. And if that had stayed my only measurement, I wouldn't be where I am today. And my daughter would either hate me or we would have a very strained, damaged relationship because I would have kept showing up in that same way. I would have never been able to create the results that I wanted. And my stomach is growling really loud for like the third time. So if you can hear it, that's what it is. But today, my daughter and I have a wonderful relationship because I learned how to see and clear those subconscious blocks and roadblocks. I changed my beliefs and weeded out the repetitive autopilot thoughts. I created those bridges to what I wanted to create, the results I wanted to create in my life. I questioned my thoughts and beliefs and their validity and saw them as outright lies sometimes. Our thoughts aren't always true. Then I gave myself different measurements of success, like responding instead of reacting, holding a boundary, feeling love in my heart instead of fear when I held a boundary, truly listening to my daughter instead of thinking about my rebuttal the whole time and never really hearing what she was saying to me, building beliefs that served me, educating myself about addiction, giving myself grace and compassion. And there's so many more milestones and measurements of success that are really an important part of the journey. But you get the point of what I'm saying. You need to see all of the small wins to keep moving forward. Otherwise, you just get overwhelmed and into inaction because then you start thinking it's not working. You have to expand your views of what success likes, of what success looks like. So that's it. That's how you clear self-sabotaging subconscious blocks. That's how you clear the roadblocks. You become the watcher of your thoughts. When you notice how you feel about a circumstance in your life, you question what you've been thinking about it. Questions are the off switch for autopilot thoughts and the on switch for your prefrontal cortex. So, questions are very useful for making changes in your life. I want you to ask yourself if you really believe what you've been thinking. Is it possible your thoughts aren't true? Maybe you don't have an answer right away. Just sit with it. Just let yourself not have an answer, but keep being open to the possibility that what you're thinking isn't true, especially if it doesn't serve you. Then ask yourself what belief shifts could serve you in this situation. Go through the process I talked about with, the lash extensions earlier, all the questions I asked myself. explore how these thoughts might be a pattern in other areas of your life. See how you're taking one thought and using it in multiple relationships or at home and work, and how you think about yourself. Be intentional with what you want to think. Write it down. Keep thinking it over and over until it becomes your new belief and your new intentional autopilot thought you take action from. If you want help clearing your roadblocks in a judgment-free zone, then sign up for a call with me using the link in the show notes. That's all I have this week. I hope you have a great rest of the week and a great weekend. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want to learn more about my work, go to heatherrosscoaching.com. If you want to help other parents who are struggling with a child's addiction, you can do it 2 different ways. First, you can share the podcast with them directly, or you can share it on your social media. Second, you can leave a review. Talk to you next week.